Well, hopefully it's pleasant.
Wonderful weather.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so I'll see you on Wednesday.
Yes, I'm just putting it in my schedule.
You know, I hope to have these requiem candles here before All Souls, when I couldn't do it.
Oh, that's
But next year.
Live streaming your investment talk next week.
Oh, good, because I've had people ask me.
Yeah, so it'll be live streamed.
Okay. Can you make me
You
look
have to do
better?
it in here though.
Can you make me look better?
Put it all together.
they're starting at the back.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
Oh. I think I showed you at some point.
The podcast.
Yes, we can hear you.
So I'm going to keep this a short presentation. I'm going to say a few words about who I am. Most of you know who I am. I'm choir master and organist here. And I've been a church organist since 1970 when I was quite young. So it's been 25 some years or 40 some years, 45 years, I guess. And I was 25 years organist and pianist and harpsichordist for the Los Angeles Camerata. Some of you might have been familiar with. I studied pre-law at the University of Michigan. And during that time, I was a student of Marilyn Mason, and here at law school at UCLA, Tom Harmon was my organ instructor. And after that, I studied with Cherry Rhodes for a short time at USC. But my career was at CBS Television. Most of you know that I was 31 years CFO at Television City and until it was sold. And then for 2 years, I worked for the Biden administration as a lawyer in the Small Business Administration. So today we're going to start with the geography of this instrument. I'll talk a little about technical things that you need to know. We'll start in the back and then we'll move to the front. If you don't mind coming into the Damien Chapel as you can fit, I think we can all. The organ has 85. The organ is 85 times either or 32. In right, it's 4,000 to 5,000 pipes. So that's a definition of a. I want to mention the families of organs. Because you'll hear about these. We have the diapason chorus, the principals. There are the strings, the flutes, and the reeds. And if you come in, above the door here is a string. This is the only string in our organ you can see. The rest are behind the shades. The case. Up here, if you'll come in. Very narrow. And that's a string rank, okay? Actually, 2 ranks of strings there. If we step out to the other side, the processional diapason is this rank of pipes here. The case, again, is by Thomas McDonough, Weston Harris's construction partner. And this rank of pipes is from the 1904 Christ Church organ that was moved in 1914 to the Church of the Open Door. And then in the 80s, when that church, the organ was being destroyed, the church was demolished, Weston Harris saved that organ for us. It's about half of the instrument here is from the Church of the Open Door. When you see this diapason, notice how much thicker it is with respect to the length of the pipes than the string was, right? Much more fundamental in the pitches from this. You'll hear them in a minute. So this is a diapason. We had the string family on the other side. Let's talk about the reed family, okay? The state trumpet has an interesting history. If you remember Jimmy Jones and his trip to Guyana and the Kool-Aid, his Los Angeles congregation was at Angelus Temple on Figueroa Street, and this rank of pipes was in the organ at that building, in that church, and came here when they, after they took off for Africa. Notice at the bottom of the pipes, there's a boot that goes into the wooden construction there, and that's where the reed is. A reed rank, the pitch is defined by the length of the resonator and the vibration of a reed in the boot of the pipes, okay? In front of you is the chimes that were added, Michael, around 1988?
1988, Michael, those ones?
I think that's right. They're particularly interesting because they're deacon chimes. That's probably
Deacon chimes.
Maker of chimes that's ever made. So they're very, very high quality.
It's also a columbarium, and I think there's room in there if you want to make a reservation. If you step back just a bit, you'll see above the trumpet what's called a mounted cornet. A mounted cornet is, in this case, 5 ranks of pipes that always, when you push a note, you always hear 5 pitches. It's tuned in harmonics. That is from an organ that was a gift of the students of South Pasadena High School in the 1920s. The class gave an organ to the auditorium, and that mounted cornet is from that organ.
The ones that are set
Yes,
vertically?
yes. It's hard to see with the sun but
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
The chimes don't work with like a striker, right? It's like,
no, there's a striker.
oh, there is, okay.
Right, it's played from the console, but they're played
I got it.
striker, yes.
I just can't see it.
There's a mallet on the back.
Oh, got it, okay. Yeah.
Something to remember about this.
It's electric.
It's all acoustic. A lot of times organs nowadays will have some stops that are done electronically. It'll be high for the use of that. Ours is totally the old way, classical way.
So let's take a look. Thank you, Michael. Let's look at this from the room here. You've all heard all of this a lot, right? You've heard it, and you know it comes from different places. Off to the very right, you see a set of shades, right? Above the altar there's a set of shades. That's the choir division. It's behind shades. We'll talk about shades later. To the left of that is the great organ. The great organ. That's a diapason. You see an 8-foot diapason. So let me talk pitch now. What is 8 feet? You hear organists say 8 feet, 2 feet. It's time to talk about that. If you play a rank of pipes that has the pitch of a piano, okay, and you play the lowest C on the keyboard, that pipe is 8 feet long, okay? That's sort of standard pitch, 8 foot. That front corner left pipe there is 8 feet tall. That's low C, okay? And that rank of pipes, it's interesting. That was from the home organ of Siffler. His first name was Paul, I think. Paul Siffler. He was organist here for 45 years and had a home organ, and that rank of 8-foot diapasons came from his home organ. Behind that, if you step forward, you'll see a 4-foot rank. It plays an octave higher. That 4-foot rank is from the original 1929 organ that was put in this church. It's not part of the organ that came from the Church of the Open Door. It's from the original organ at St. Thomas Church, the half-length set of pipes behind the facade there, okay? On this side, behind the shades, is the swell. The swell is always behind shades. That's why it's called the swell. In front of the swell is a German Positiv division, and you'll hear how different that sounds. It's exposed, it's completely exposed. I'll answer that question. The tapered pipe is a Gemshorn, has a it's halfway between a string and a diapason in sound. Behind it, you can see the only flute that you can easily see in this room. There's a wooden set of pipes with stops on them. You see the little handles on the top. That's an example of a flute. Beyond the swell, in a room you can't see, is where the big blower is that puts the air in the organ. There's a very large fan. If you step in the parking lot, you'll see the vents where the air comes in. And here on this wall is, my grandfather's clock was too large for the shelf, so it stood on the floor. These are too large for the pipe chambers. These are the bottom ends of the big organ 16-foot pedal division. And yes, they're 16 feet tall, the tallest. Let me step to the console here. I lost my note, sorry. originally from Stanford University, the console itself, right? And it was found by Weston Harris, and the auditorium organ at Stanford, the bench is also from the Stanford University organ. These buttons are what organists call the stops. You've heard pull out all the stops. While it's not a ratio of 1-to-1, you can think of each stop representing a rank, okay? I mean, that's in general, not exactly true, but it's a good approximation. The pistons, I'm just going to talk about a few things. The pistons are the buttons underneath the keyboards, right? This is so the organist doesn't have to remember all the combinations in his head, right? You can preset arrangements of the stops and use the set button and hold in the piston and it remembers it, okay? We have 160 levels, I believe 160 levels of memory, so substitutes can come in and save their own combinations. Let me play for you this principle here. We'll start with the great. This is Paul Siffler's home organ, the 8-foot great principle. That's the 8-foot, right? And they go. Now listen to the 4-foot. Here it's an octave higher, right? Okay. That is the exposed part of the grate, those two ranks of pipes. Behind the shades is a whole principal chorus that is from the 1904 organ that came from the Church of the Open Door. Now, how do the shades open and close? The organist uses these shoes down here, right? Here. You do this with your feet, you open and close. These guys, right? I'm going to put organ shoes on because I don't let anyone play the organ in street shoes, and I shouldn't either.
So the shades are for volume control?
Right. If you can see a pipe, there's no volume change possible. The pipe's either on or off, right? The air either goes to the pipe or not. So let's explain how that happens. If I play middle C here, all the middle C's in that division theoretically are activated, right? But the stop activates the air for the rank. You can think of it that way, okay? So you need a combination of the key down and the stop pulled for the pipe to play.
And the volume control is how? The volume.
The volume, well, two ways, right? By adding or subtracting stops, right? Or by opening the shades if the organ, that part of the organ is behind shades.
Kind of like closing a door, right?
That's right. So if an organ had one division, it would live on the great keyboard, and if there were only two, the great would be on the bottom. The swell is always above the great, okay? This is our swell division. It has a principal chorus. It also has these wonderful reeds. And here, do you see the effect when the swell is open? Here we go, like. Let me point out a couple of stops on the swell. the oldest rank. People always want to know what's the oldest rank. It's the Vox Humana, and it's this guy. This was found under the floorboards of a church in Ladera Heights. Weston found it. It was an abandoned stop, and he bought it or found it for, took it. They made a gift of it to our I don't think he stole it. They made a gift of it. That's the human voice, yes. The oboe is also from Paul Siffler's home organ. The trumpet is from the Church of the Open Door. And there's a trumpet that was original here at St. Thomas. Yes.
It was from Tribal.
It was from where?
Tribal, the Reed Company.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I misspoke. So we have the great and the swell. Here's the choir division, okay? In an English organ, if you imagine the English cathedral, the organ's in the front, right on the side. The organist is sitting here facing the wall. The pipes are around him, right? And there's a little piece of organ usually behind his bench. You've seen the pictures, right? So hanging on the wall over the choir. That organ was originally, that part of the organ in England was called the chair organ because it was sort of attached to the bench. It was sort of behind him on the wall. It evolved into being called the choir organ. Here, the choir organ is behind the choir. It's way over there, right? And it makes a nice accompaniment for the choir. And we have wonderful strings on the choir. More strings. There's a clarinet. Wonderful French horn here. Let's get rid of the clarinet so you can hear it. And a little oboe, French horn. Okay, so there's the choir. On this side, there's a German positive. A positive is always exposed. There's no volume control on it. And it's a division, it also plays from here. It's a division intended to be a contrasting principal chorus to answer the great. You heard it this morning, although I botched my prelude, I'm sorry, I had the music in the wrong order, and you probably saw me faking while I'm trying to find my music. But here's the great principal chorus. And hear this. Makes a nice little echo, right? Two principal choruses and a smaller one and a larger one. It lives down here as well. So what is this for? This is a bombard division, okay? It's a solo bombard. We have the wonderful Skinner reeds that were once owned by Virgil Fox, and these reeds were from Harvard Memorial Chapel. And a fantastic tuba that you've heard many times. Right? The fourth keyboard. What's the top keyboard for? It is for everything that's in the back, right? Listen to that diapason over the chapel door. Inside the Damien Chapel, the strings. Do you hear them? The state trumpet will be a little easier to hear. right? Okay, and the mounted cornet. Whoops, it stops there, does it? And finally, a set of cathedral chimes. Right? So listen to a bit of the postlude here. I'll just play a bit of this and you can kind of watch if you want. And what did I forget? I forgot the pedals, right? With the big bottom end down here, right? Yes, we do play with our feet, and you've all seen organists playing. Any question? That's really the instrument. Michael Ensign's going to talk about some donate. He's in the back about.
So how many pipes are there?
How many pipes? 4,800 and something?
It's about that. It's how many ranks? It varies depending on how you're counting them with some of the mixtures. I'd say it's about 85 ranks.
Yeah, Weston says it's 85. If I count 88. And other organists have counted, and you go, well, how could you not know? And let me explain just that some of the pipes are extensions of other ranks, okay? So when you get into the bottom of the pedal board, you might have an 8-foot stop in the manuals that 13 pipes was added so that it can go down to 16-foot pitch in the pedal board, right? And so it's not a complete rank, and if you're counting not carefully, you could count that as a rank, right? But it's a partial rank. I think that's why there's some confusion.
Yeah, and I think that's always like, it's safe to say, she's somewhere in the high 4s to 5,000, if you count every pipe. And every single one of those pipes sits on a box of compressed air with a valve controlled by, where it presses the key, electrical impulse goes up into the opens that valve and the pipe speaks. And each one of those, to think how complicated this is, every one of those pipes has to be maintained, tuned, put it right. It's an enormous, beautiful instrument, but it's also an enormous machine.
Now, Weston has said on the website it's 4,558. He should know. He should know.
David?
Yes?
I took the liberty of grabbing a pipe.
Oh, you're a good player.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know if we should pass this around or not.
That's a reed. Yeah, that you overblew it a little bit. So that's. I don't think it would normally sound quite like that. But let's see. This is a. It looks like it might be the bottom of an oboe.
I play bagpipes, so I'm used to blowing them.
Now, where did you pull this out of? You climbed up. No, you didn't.
My attic.
Yeah, I was going to say, oh my gosh. Yeah, help yourselves. Everyone can take a pipe. Any other questions before Michael? Yeah.
When you press any of the keys, how does the signal get so quickly from where you're pressing to all over the place?
Okay, so let's talk briefly about history. Before the electronics, organ keys were connected by dowels and wires mechanically to the valves, right? Many instruments were electrified after that, and modern instruments are largely electronic. So there's a valve. It works a lot like the valve in your your garden watering system, it actually has pressure on both sides of the valve, and there's just a slight extra pressure on a spring that closes the valve under the foot of the pipe. And there's a little leak that, I'm getting too technical, but that allows the air to flow through the pipe when you push the key, when you open that valve and push the key, okay? Now, today there is actually a Peterson computer in here that consolidates all the information, right? The keys, the stops, and there are relatively few wires that go to the other side of the computer up in the chamber. So you can imagine there's a wall of pins where all the wires connecting under the valves they come out on these pins, right, in order. Then the computer is patched over to that. So all the organ valves are on a wall, a set of pins, or different walls in the different parts of the organ. And then the computer is wired over to that with little patch cords.
So you need electricity.
Oh yeah, there's electricity. Well, the blower requires electricity.
Right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work without it.
It wouldn't work without electricity, no. Well, we could all volunteer, I guess, and huff and puff. I don't know how we'd get the valves open, though. Michael, do you want to talk about the donations and things? Unless you have any more questions. Did you learn what you wanted to learn?
The organ is very interesting, of course, as David so masterfully explained to us how it works, the marvelous instrument it is musically. It's also known as the AIDS memorial organ. As I said to some of you earlier this morning, there were, during the period of time of the AIDS epidemic, when this parish was reaching out to so many people who were suffering and dying, Father Barber was very keen that there be things that would commemorate or talk about that time. One night, according to Weston was here talking to the rector, who was Father Barber, and he said it was almost like a shaft of light hit the rector, because it was like a light bulb turning on. And he said, we've got to have a wonderful instrument here, because he understood that if we had a magnificent, beautiful instrument, it would provide hope, inspiration, and courage at a time of darkness, that it would uplift the congregation, but also that it could be a symbol and reach out to the community through musical events and concerts, again, at a time when many people were dying. As I said to the group this morning, my own personal experience during that period of time, I lost 42 friends and associates. I went to like 42 funerals, and any of us who are older, who are here, probably have very similar experiences. So it was very important that in fear and trembling, the church took on this organ project at a point where this is not a rich place. It wasn't a rich place then, it's not a rich place now. So to take on a massive instrument, and that's when Weston was told that there was this instrument, the Los Angeles Art Organ Company, that was the original builder from 1904, it's Opus 46. It started life down at an Episcopal church downtown that was torn down. And then, as David said, it traveled up to the Church of the Open Door. But that core instrument was able to, and typical Father Barber, they contacted him. He was in Hawaii. They contacted him and said, we can get this organ for $10,000. And he said, offer him $5. And they settled on $6. So this core instrument came to us, and that's what, if you go up and look at the console afterwards and you look on some of the stops, there's an A on them, a little tiny A. That's Los Angeles Art Organ Company. So you would see the stops that are actually from that original organ. From that core, things began to happen. One night, Weston was here and this guy showed up and he said, I've been saving this rank of pipes.
because someday I want to build an organ that's very important to me. He said, I have AIDS and I'm not going to make it, but I understand what you're doing here and I want to be part of it. So I'm giving you this set of pipes. It's the Doppelflute from 1880s. And he donated that set of pipes to be in this organ because of what this church, this parish has been doing, reaching out to people who are suffering with AIDS. Weston was able to employ a few people who had AIDS, who had lost their jobs. But there's a certain amount of what you'd call donkey work to be done on an instrument like this that can be done by unskilled people. And he gave them jobs. The organ bench came the same way, that it got reunited with this because he couldn't help but, because of what this organ was going to be and how it was going to be utilized, he couldn't let, even though the guy loved the bench because it's a beautiful piece of furniture, he said it has to be with this instrument. So over the period of time this organ was being built, there were many instances like that. And indeed, that's what it's done. It's reached out to the community. It's played for how many funerals? Many. One month we had, during the height of the AIDS epidemic, we had 11 funerals. We averaged sort of 5 or 6 every month. That's what it was like.
Can I ask you, Michael? I've forgotten if I ever know. The top keyboard, which I didn't point out, came from the console from St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. And I don't know how Pietro Jans, who's the organist there, I don't know how that...
I honestly don't know how
we got that.
I mean, I fought with him like mad about adding a 5th manual. And he said, no, we've got to have a 5th manual because each division will have its own home. It won't have to wander all over.
Comment about that. I played here from 93 till 2004. And I will tell you that when the bombard reeds that sit behind the choir, actually those 2 organs behind that last set of shades, I didn't point that out. The choir organ sits in front and the bombard reeds sit behind behind the choir, behind the same set of shades. The bombard and the state trumpet and the processional were all on the same keyboard. And logistics, you could get into traps if you weren't really careful. They really needed to be separated out to keep the organist from making mistakes. I still set some traps for myself, even after all these.
When we watch you play, I mean, it's amazing that you're playing with your feet, with your hands, but you're moving through 5, call it 6 keyboards. That is amazing. But that's, again, it's the size. And people criticized at the time the organ was being put in that this is too big, you don't need this, blah, 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 blah. Well, the decision was taken in 1988 that this is what was going to happen, that we're going to do this organ. And so it went forward with that. But when, as again I said to some of you this morning, when you think of an organ of this size, it's not just firepower. I mean, David could blow us across Hollywood Boulevard. She's got all that kind of power in her. But it's more that you're giving an artist like David a whole palette of colors. Like if he was painting a painting, he wouldn't be stuck with just 5 or 6 colors. It's the entire rainbow, the entire palette that he can draw from in sound. So that's why an organ of this size and complexity is a marvelous instrument. This is one of the largest pipe organs in Southern California. And we are so blessed to have it. And we're blessed to have somebody who can play it so brilliantly. But it's
one thing that, because someone just whispered in my ear, the keyboards can be combined. Okay, someone said, "How do you play it all together when it's on the different keyboards?" Everything in the organ can play from the grate. That's universal all over the world, right? Everything couples with this set of stops here actually move the divisions to different places, but everything can come to the grate. The swell can play on the grate. The bombard and the processional can play here. The swell can play here. Nothing else can play on the swell. You just have to kind of learn each instrument, what goes where. But the entire organ can be played from here.
And an instrument like this, why do you go to the expense, the trouble, and all the rest of it to have an instrument like this? Well, each one, for the glory of God and for the artistry. But each pipe organ like this, it's been customized to this room. This room is part of the organ.
The instrument, right?
They're not two separate entities, because the acoustic in the room, the organ builder has voiced, it's called voiced this organ, so that it is part of this room and reflects this particular place and in a sense this particular time. For example, it's tuned so that it falls into as good a tune as it's going to get about 10:30 in the morning, which is of course when we have our high mass. These things are like, I get a little silly about this, but they're alive. There's air, there's movement, there's all sorts of physics and sound, rather than, I hate to say it, an electronic organ where you exactly the same all the time.
Let me explain that tuning question, because I saw some eyebrows. And it's true. What Michael has said is absolutely true. The sun hits the roof on this side of the church in the morning and here in the afternoon. The pitch raises. The pitch rises with the temperature, okay? Because the air will vibrate, I guess, faster. Anyhow, the pitch rises when the temperature goes up. So Weston tunes this. The way the temperature balances at about 10:30, 11 in the morning. Evening masses are never quite as well in tune as morning masses.
So it's alive, and it shouldn't sound perfect. It's a musical instrument. It's not. If you want to hear strange sounding organs, try French organs. They sound amazing, but they don't sound like every note in there is in tune.
No.
So these pipes are sounding sympathetic with each other. But to finish my spiel about this, that's why this organ is not just the instrument that it is, but it's a representative of what this parish went through at a particular time. And it's a legacy. And we hope that it goes on for many, many, many years, inspiring people who come to worship here, and also concerts and people in the community to experience it. So
there was no organ at all in this church?
There was an organ here. There was an organ built in 1929. I played it, actually, in the 70s. I was pianist and organist for a group called the Hollywood Chorale, and they did a concert here. I can remember playing Vivaldi Gloria, and you had to pull out almost all the stops to get every note to play something. It was very haphazard in those days. I don't want to pick on it, but it was extremely difficult to play.
It was small. It was a small instrument. This building was never completed when it originally was built. So that the organ at that time, the little tin ranks organ, sat up here behind velvet curtains until the 60s when these chambers came into being.
Right.
So I can't imagine what it would have sounded like hanging behind a big velvet curtain.
I can't
But
imagine.
anyway.
And
But they
remember
thought-
that principle in the back, the shorter one, right? The silver pipes behind the bigger ones in the front. That was from the 1929 organ.
And they had, whenever they did these chambers, these transepts, they were thinking ahead back in 1964 when they were built. Because they were built to be large, they were reinforced. It's a tremendous amount of weight of an instrument like that. And even though they had a little tiny organ to put back up in there, they had thought ahead so that in '88, some of that vision was beginning to be seen. So anyway, we love it, as you can tell. And you heard it beautifully played.
Mary?
Yeah, Michael, thank you, David, so much. My question is, when you have a piece of music you're about to play, or learn, or present, how do you know which ranks to use,
So it's easier on some music, right? It's very, like the postlude today calls for a trumpet, right? With a pretty full organ accompaniment. So there, yeah, the organist has to decide, do I accompany the trumpet with the great or the positive, you know, what'll balance? And you kind of have to know the instrument to do that. Bach's registration, he'll call full organ. He'll say principal chorus, maybe along with reeds, and you need to interpret that. Franck, César Franck is very specific in his registrations. He'll say montre, in French the principal chorus is called the montre, not diapason. He'll say montre and flutes at 8 foot and an oboe at 8 foot, you know, he'll specify. So it depends. When I'm improvising, which you hear me do all the time, I just kind of...
And it's wonderful, it's like an orchestra.
Right.
It's got strings, it's got flutes, it's got diapasons, it's got reeds.
We didn't explain strings, did we? Strings are those narrow pipes, but there's something interesting that I didn't tell you about them. They come in pairs. I don't want this to get too long, but listen to the pair of strings. You'll hear that they aren't in tune together, and that's what gives the string its shimmering sound. Let me give you an example. Do you hear that slightly sharp? So when you put the two together, you get this shimmering. Hear it? Here's another set of strings in the swell. Here's the viola. Here's its celeste. A little sharp, right? You hear how that? Same in the choir. Here's the dulciana. Whoops, I've got more going on here. And hear that a little sharp? The viola and they're not the same pitch. So they come together in this very warm sort. Anything else I forgot?
I can answer one of your questions from earlier. Where did the fifth keyboard come from?
How did it get here from New York?
Okay. Bob Turner, if you remember him.
Yeah.
Okay. Was building 2 new consoles to replace the 2 original Tilton consoles at St. Patrick's.
At St. Patrick's, New York.
And he ended up, Weston got one of the keyboards from him. They sent it off to PNS in England to be rebuilt, and then it was brought here.
Wow. Very good. And I play Gesù Bambino at Christmas time, which was Pietro. He's famous for that piece. And I always try to use something up there on that keyboard.
Could you just hit the 32s? They're sort of the earthquake stops.
Okay. Well, you know, they aren't really 32s. Do I have to explain this?
Yeah, well, their pitch is at 32 feet.
Yeah, so how do we have all these stops here that say 32 feet? You're going to say the ceiling over there is not 32 feet. This isn't possible. Weston is brilliant at reading this room, okay? So, this is a little like your cell phone, right? That little speaker in your cell phone can't create the pitches you hear. It's impossible, right? But Alexander Graham Bell figured out that if the right harmonics, upper harmonics of a note or a voice are played on a speaker and a telephone, your brain will fill in the difference. Your brain will tell you, oh, that's the harmonics of that note, and you'll think you hear it even though you don't. So I don't know how easy this is going to be to hear. This is the gedeckt. Right? That's a little quiet. That's our quietest 16-foot pipe. This is the 32 that goes with it. this is the harmonic that it's hard to hear it. That if you listen very carefully, it gives the sensation of being a 32. Let me do a louder one here. There's the Borden. Our Borden is out. I blew a fuse today. Here's the 32. It's really adding a harmonic. So what's the harmonic series of a note? I'll keep this short. You have the fundamental pitch. The first harmonic is 1 octave higher. That divides the pipe in half. And there's a wave that's the length of the pipe, and then there's one that cuts that in half, and you hear that octave pitch, right? The next harmonic cuts the pipes into thirds. You're getting bored, I know with this. That pitch is actually an octave and 5 notes above the fundamental. So if you hear the first harmonic, which is the octave, and the second harmonic, that's that fifth, your brain, if they're exactly the right volume comparison, your brain will think you're hearing the note an octave below the note you hear. Does that make sense? That's how the 32s work.
Play the reed that you can break your lease by.
The reed in the corner. The reed is an extension of the trombone. There, you have the reed. It's a little out of tune on the bottom here. But it's quite effective if you use it with the diapason here. Lot of organ. Any other questions?
I have a question which is less musical. I was looking for the Age Memorial organ online. Has the history of it been written about and put like on Wikipedia or every place else besides the church's site?
It should. We haven't done it. It needs to have a Wikipedia entry, and we need to have a proper pamphlet.
I think it's something that's really important to do for history, and as time passes,
Thanks.
memories get lost. I think it'd be a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I'm happy to help.
Thank you all for.
Thank you.
I'll be here for any questions you have. Yeah.